hightimetoawake.com presents High Time to Awake. Bible Prophecy with Craig C. White. Today's study is titled Magog Made Easier, Part 1. Ezekiel 38 may be a preview to Ezekiel 39. This is my second commentary covering the Battle of Gog and Magog. In my first commentary, I identify the people and places involved in the Battle of Gog and Magog. For more information, please see my previous commentary titled Magog Made Easy. This commentary, titled Magog Made Easier, looks at the differences between Ezekiel 38 and Ezekiel 39 and explores the near possibility of the Battle of Gog and Magog. Gog is the land of Turkey. Magog is its leader. The terms Gog and Magog are used seemingly interchangeably in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Ezekiel 38 and 39 describe a Turkish-led invasion into Israel. My view is that the events in chapter 38 may happen before the events described in Ezekiel chapter 39. We will look at Ezekiel chapter 38 in part 1 of Magog Made Easier, and in part 2 we will look at Ezekiel chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 38, 1 through 3. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Ezekiel 38 and Ezekiel 39 begin in similar ways. God tells Ezekiel to prophesy against the leader of the land of Gog, or the modern nation of Turkey. I think that Ezekiel 38 and 39 have separate applications because God divides them into two proclamations. It may be that the battle of Ezekiel 38 happens before the Great Tribulation, and the battle of Ezekiel 39 happens a few years later at the end of the Great Tribulation. I will say more about that in my commentary on chapter 39. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 4. And I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. God will cause the Turkish army to turn like an animal being led with a bit in its mouth. In other words, he will put hooks into their jaw. The Turkish army will turn towards Israel. Today I would watch the Turkish army now amassed on the Syrian border. It may be that God will use the Turkish army to destroy Damascus, as prophesied in Isaiah 17 and Jeremiah 49, and afterward turn them towards Israel. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 5. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. I explain the identities of these people in my commentary titled Magog Made Easy. Persia, Ethiopia, or Cush in the Hebrew, and Libya are today's Iran, Ethiopia with Sudan, and Libya. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 6. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. Magog, Meshech, Tubal, and Gomer were brothers. Togarmah is Gomer's son. They were among the first families to resettle the world after the devastation of Noah's flood. They all settled together in today's Turkey. The north quarters literally describes the northern quadrant of Turkey, not a northern country. So Turkey will lead an invasion into Israel, joined by Iran, Ethiopia, and or Sudan, and Libya. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. This prophecy will take place a long time after it was given to Ezekiel. It will take place in the latter years, meaning last or end. The latter years are the years before Jesus Christ's return to earth to judge the nations and rule on the earth from Jerusalem. Turkey will be visited by a person with intentions of mustering troops to invade Israel. This may be referring to Magog himself, the Turkish leader who will instigate the battle. Today, it is easy to see that Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan is eager to start a war with Israel. Please read my commentary titled Mr. Magog at hightimetoawake.com. The land brought back from the sword is the land of Israel, again inhabited by the Jewish people. The phrase out of many people and the phrase out of the nations are the same Hebrew words meaning out of every tribe. So Israel will be inhabiting the land in peace and prosperity before this invasion, just as they are today. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 9. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass, that at the same time shall come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil, and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Please notice that the armies are gathered, but have not yet invaded the land of Israel. Sheba and Dedan refer to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. My guess is that Tarshish refers to Tarsus, a seaport town in the southeastern coastal region of Turkey today, but there are other theories. Ezekiel doesn't say that Saudi Arabia is joined in the battle, but that they ask the Turkish-led army if it is about to invade Israel in order to acquire wealth. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 14. Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, Thus saith the Lord God, In that day when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company, and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. In verse 14 above, the phrase, shalt thou not know it, means that Turkey will be able to see that Israel is dwelling in peace. In verse 15, the phrase north parts again means northern quadrant. It may be that the Turkish-led army enters Israel from the north. Today the Turkish army is gathered on the northwestern Syrian border. Turkey wants Syrian President Assad to be removed. If Turkey attacks the Syrian capital of Damascus, then they would be in position to invade Israel from the north. In verse 16, the heathen are nations. The nations will recognize and observe God as he deals with the invading armed forces. These are especially the nations of the Middle East. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 17. Thus saith the Lord God, Art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them? In my opinion, this is a bit of a trick question. The question is, are you the one that my prophets said would attack Israel? The answer is yes. This is the same army that Jesus defeats in the Battle of Armageddon. It is my opinion, however, that not all prophecy regarding the end-time invasion of Israel will be fulfilled at this time. Ezekiel chapter 38 may be a preview to Ezekiel chapter 39. I think that the events in Ezekiel chapter 39 are the events that have been prophesied to happen at the end of the Great Tribulation. These forces will again invade Israel, and Jesus Christ himself will trample them like grapes. See Isaiah chapter 63 verse 3, Jeremiah chapter 25 verse 30, and Revelation chapter 14 verse 20. Chapter 39 describes the day of the Lord. Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 8 says, Behold, it is come, and it is done, saith the Lord God. This is the day whereof I have spoken. Now let's continue with Ezekiel chapter 38. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 18. And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shall shake at my presence. And the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother. In verse 21, the invading forces battle amongst themselves. In verse 22, plead means to judge. The word bands refer to military troops. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 22. And I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him, and upon his bands, and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. It is important to note that God uses the forces of nature against the invading armies. God sends an enormous earthquake, pestilence, which means destruction, and blood, which means bloodshed, and an overflowing rain, great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Again, the nations will recognize and observe God as he deals with the invading armed forces. This doesn't mean that the nations will reverence God. This study is continued in Magog Made Easier, Part 2. High Time to Awake now has 3 new ebooks out. The first one is The Fall of Satan and the Rise of the Antichrist. It is packed with Bible prophecy that is essential for us to understand today, as well as explaining how the revealing of the Antichrist is a sign of the rapture. This book contains some of my most important commentary. God's Great Expectations is a book about God's desire to know us and about the ramifications of knowing Him or rejecting Him. It will challenge and inform every Christian. It contains an in-depth definition of hell in the Bible and a map of heaven. The Last Jews in Jerusalem chronicles the trial of the nation of Israel during the Great Tribulation period. Happily, it also explores the return of the Shekinah glory to Jerusalem and the return of all believing Jews to Israel and life after the tribulation. To read my full commentary, go to hightimetoawake.com. You may also contact me through the website as well as check out my new book. Thanks. Hello, this is Craig C. White. Please check out my website at hightimetoawake.com. And while you're there, check out my new book, High Time to Awake, 7 Misinterpreted Bible Prophecies. It contains several commentaries about prophecies that are about to happen in the world today, including Magog Made Easy, which is about an invasion of Israel led by Turkey, and also in chapter 1, the fall and rise of the Antichrist, which tells us that the revelation of the Antichrist on earth is the sign of the rapture. These are important issues for Christians to understand today, so please check out the book at hightimetoawake.com, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.